All right, guys, welcome back to the Grace Students Podcast. We're here with our latest edition. My name is Bryan. I am the student pastor at Grace Bible Church in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. It's good to have you guys join us today. I'm joined here with a few special guests. One you've seen before. Scott, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited for this. This is our first podcast in the new studio.
This is.
And so we're really excited about that. Yeah, but I think this is going to be a really good discussion.
Why do you think that, Scott?
I think it was, I don't know. I just think that a lot of things are going to be uncovered. I think there's going to be a lot of encouragement. And I think that we're going to see some things fleshed out that will give some hope for the next generation.
Be beneficial.
I think so.
Cool. We're also joined here today by Emily O'Donnell. Emily, how are you today?
I am doing great, Bryan. How are you?
Doing well. This is your first time joining us on the podcast, so we're super excited about that.
I'm excited to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, hi, guys. I'm Emily, and just like a lot of you students, I grew up in the Altoona-Hollidaysburg area. I'm a graduate of Altoona High, but I'm currently a senior at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which is a mouthful, so we just say IUP. And I am studying English education with a minor in music, and I am currently in my last semester of taking classes ever, hopefully going to grad school at some point, but almost done taking classes and doing some student teaching, and then I'll be student teaching all the time in the spring. So I'm really excited about that. I'm teaching 11th and 12th graders right now, and so like a lot of you students, which is great, and I love them. They're really great, and they make me laugh all the time. So we have a good time with that.
Cool. So would you say your experience to this point has been pretty positive at IUP?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's actually kind of crazy. When I first started applying for colleges, I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go. I knew from the time that I was a little kid that I wanted to be a teacher. That's truly all I've ever wanted to be, so it's exciting that that's finally happening now. When I started applying for colleges, I knew I wanted to go to college, but I was actually so scared of going to college that I only applied to IUP because I was like, I don't know where I want to go. I just know I want to be a teacher, and IUP is only an hour from home, so it's not that far away, and they have an excellent education program. So shameless plug for the education program at IUP. And God definitely redeemed my fear in the fact that he was able to just bring me to IUP, even though I wasn't sure that that's where I wanted to go. I just knew that the program was good and it was close to home, and it has been just a better experience than I could have even possibly imagined. I remember when I was applying, a lot of people were kind of questioning that decision just because I did grow up in the church, and my faith has always been important to me, even though it's gone through, dry seasons and not dry seasons along the way. And a lot of people kind of said, IUP has the reputation of a party school. Like, why are you going there? Yeah. And I kind of, wasn't even totally sure myself. But I knew that God was calling me to a public university because he was calling me to public school. And I've always felt like that. And so I knew I wanted to just be in that culture, to know what that was going to be like, and to seek out a ministry within that culture. And I just prayed every day that summer leading up to college that God would lead me to a ministry in college that I could grow with.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
And I think that's huge, especially when you're talking about, okay, where am I going to spend the next 4 years training for what I want to do, training for my career. And I'm going to do it in an environment which is going to be, in a lot of ways, similar to what I'm going to be experiencing in my career. And I think that's smart. That's a good thing.
It was also scary.
Sure.
It was kind of, my first semester was a little bit shocking to me, actually. I mean, I grew up in a public school, and so I was used to a lot of what went on there, and I'm not a perfect person either, so I've made mistakes along the way, and we're all sinful. But then when I started at school, it just kind of did shock me that, like, there's just a lot that goes on in the world that I didn't experience growing up, because I was very, very thankful to grow up in a Christian home and have, like, good influences at home. And and parents who raised me with the truth of the gospel. And then immediately I went to college and met so many like wonderful, good friends who are, you know, atheist or agnostic or really reject the gospel or choose to live for the world instead of living for Christ. Along with that, I met an incredible group of Christian friends too who really have pushed me to pursue the gospel. But in a lot of ways, you know, I was scared to go away from home, scared to leave my family, really upset about not being with my parents, and just felt lonely. And then just, you know, learning more about the world all at the same time. It was just like, whoa, this is so much all at the same time. But yeah, I can go into talking more about, you know, how God introduced me to my campus ministry if we want to kind of talk about that.
And I think kind of along that same vein, you know, and Scott, you talk a lot on your podcast about culture and how culture plays into so many different aspects and how that intersects with our faith. And I think coming off of that, and you could give us some thoughts on that and how you've seen that, but I think what you've seen as well is a huge intersection of culture and faith in your experience at IUP. And so, Scott, why don't you give us a little bit of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say about what you just went through, and I guess I want to start it off with there just seems to be such an emphasis put on kids, like you only get one shot at college, and like it puts so much pressure on them. And then I think, like you said, they get there and they just get overwhelmed to an extent of wow, there is so much happening that I never even knew existed. And I'm meeting people, and you, it's kind of like high school again, like freshman year maybe, except on a very large free scale where you're like, all right, well, no one's here to really babysit me, so I can kind of hang out and do the things. And do you want to talk a little bit about like how easy it can be? Because you said you met a lot of nice people who were atheist or agnostic. How quickly is faith tested in not just public universities, but anywhere?
Yeah.
You know, how quickly is that faith tested when you start talking to people and they may not know, you know, where you are or, you know, what your theology is, and they make some wisecrack, you know, that's very anti-Christian. Like, how quickly did that happen?
Oh, so quickly, like day one. And it's so funny because I'm even thinking back to what I just said and what you're saying, and it was so shocking to me to hear at the time when I was a freshman that like, oh, there's people here who aren't Christians, and like that this is just different than my home life, and it's such a vulnerable time, and it was so shocking to me at the time. But now I feel like God has grown me in that I can have conversations with friends who don't believe the same thing that I do. At the time, it was hard for me to have those conversations because I hadn't seriously had them before. In high school, you know, I had Christian friends at church, not really a lot of Christian friends at school, and I didn't really push myself or let the Spirit lead me out of my comfort zone always to have those conversations. And so college was really the first time. I'm in the honors college at IUP, and it's a very discussion-based classes atmosphere. And so it's also a very everyone's super opinionated all the time, and I actually love it. Like, it's incredible, and I have learned to really talk to people through that environment. And so we'll sit in class and just legitimately fight with each other all the time. And at first that was really hard. And I was thinking, oh my word, all these people who I'm friends with also, and some that I wasn't really close with, are just testing my faith so much and asking me all these questions and pretty much saying, you know, why are you this way? And, you know, the kind of mindset at the university level is that everything is relative, and I came in saying absolute truth, and that wasn't received very well. And I even went through times of doubt in my faith because of classes I took, and feeling like, oh, if there's so many people who don't believe this, maybe I'm wrong. And God kind of took me through that. But I want to
doubt is a natural part of developing your faith. And I think that's something that a lot of people are like, but that's a healthy part of that. You have to be able to question and work through. And
absolutely. I want to go back to a point that Scott, you were saying about just like freshman year kind of being a vulnerable time. I don't know if you phrased it exactly like that, but that's what I was
Similar.
thinking. Yeah. And I feel like, and I experienced this too, you're so vulnerable in that time that you're just looking for a group to belong to.
Yeah.
And so it's so easy to, because you want so desperately to belong to something and for people to love you, to make decisions that you wouldn't make otherwise,
Yep.
or go and be part of the party culture. And I was like, as a freshman, I was just so anti-party culture. And now I have, God has grown me in like loving people more than I did as a freshman. So I don't look at, you know, friends who party and be like, oh, you're wrong, like, oh, condemn you.
Right.
I did when I was a freshman.
Yeah.
I look to friends who struggle and say, like, let me sit down with you and talk with you through this, and just be your friend and try to love you like Jesus, even though I do that so imperfectly. But yeah, that's why I feel like, for me, freshman year was super defining, because I started college a week earlier than everybody else because I was in band. I'm a total band geek. Freshman year, and so I was on campus a week early for band camp, and I was walking through the center of our campus is called the Oak Grove. There's just a lot of trees and people hang hammocks and like hang out, and it's pretty cool. I love it. And there was this group of people who were handing out flyers for this barbecue. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Let me go grab one. So I went and got one, and I started talking to these people, and they were like, yeah, we're part of a church. We do a campus ministry here at IUP. And I almost started crying in that moment, because I was like, God, I prayed for this all summer, and then 3 days into college, you bring them to me. Like, I didn't even have to go to them. They were there for me. And so the barbecue was the next week, and this older girl in my campus ministry is called CCO, which stands for Coalition for Christian Outreach. And one of the older senior girls in CCO got my number and came to my dorm and met me and walked me to the church. And
that's cool.
I just felt like she came to where, that's like a beautiful picture of who Jesus is, because he comes to where we are. And takes us to where he is. And so we went to the church, and I just met this incredible group of people who showed me the hospitality of the gospel, and how even in I feel like I was just ignorant to so much as a freshman, and just kind of like self-righteous in a lot of ways. And even in the midst of that sin, people, you know, brought me in and cared for me, and showed me that my self-righteousness is wrong, and that we're put on this campus to love this community, not to condemn them. And so that's where I really feel like I started to grow in my faith, even though I did grow up in the church, and I'm so blessed and thankful for the background I have in that. College is where I really feel like my faith became my own, and God revealed himself to me in a greater way in a time of intense vulnerability in my life. So
well, and that's that idea is a huge mindset shift when you're talking about like condemning somebody versus loving somebody. And I mean, come on, like if we're honest, we all wrestle with that.
Absolutely.
In multiple different facets of life, even well beyond the college years. That's something that I work through, you know, and to be able to model what Jesus is like in a setting like that becomes the most powerful apologetic, right? Like it becomes more powerful than anything you could say, although saying comes later, but the doing, the reaching out, the mindset shift, I think that's so huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was going to ask you, so you talk about freshman year being, you know, defining in that, man, you kind of found a group to be able to plug in with, and CCO, you know, has kind of been what you've tracked with, and you know, the whole way through, and now you're a senior, and now you're kind of, what does that look like for you to kind of be taken under somebody's wing, and then to kind of see God really do some pretty cool things, and now you're a senior. What's your thought process now as a senior?
Now I'm taking people under my wing, which is awesome.
That is
so
awesome.
I remember another kind of defining moment as a freshman was another girl who was a senior, at one of our first Bible studies afterwards just was talking to me and asked me if I just wanted to get coffee with her. And now I like give all of my money to that coffee shop because I'm there all the time. Shameless plug for Commonplace. But and she just sat with me and asked me about my life and just cared about me and cared about where I came from and what I was doing and wanted to know what was going on with me. And I was like, this is awesome. And so I distinctly remember my sophomore year. After that, she was 3 years older than me, so she graduated after my freshman year. And sophomore year, we had a new group of freshmen come in, and at that point, I had moved into leadership in CCO because I wanted to start helping lead Bible studies and we plan outreach events to the campus a lot, and we just focus on discipling students. And so I remember my sophomore year meeting a group of freshmen and thinking like, okay, I want to find someone that I can get coffee with and show her that I care about her. So I remember doing that with my close friend Taylor. And then she when she was a sophomore, made a point to do the same thing with other freshmen coming in, and even told me that she did that. And I thought that was really cool because there's like a chain reaction when we care for others and when we disciple other people. And so now as a senior, I feel like God has really used, I couldn't even begin to describe all the experiences I've had in CCO that have shaped my faith, between Bible studies and I've helped lead book studies too. We read, my freshman year I helped lead Francis Chan's Crazy Love in my dorm, which was awesome.
I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, it was so cool. And we go to a big conference in Pittsburgh every year. It's called Jubilee, and we talk about they go through kind of the 4 stages of the gospel: creation, the fall, redemption, and restoration. And then we do breakout sessions that relate to our major. So the motto of CCO is transforming college students to transform the world. So we focus a lot on equipping students in their vocations to then go and impact other people. And so a lot of what we focus on, we meet every Wednesday night, is equipping students with the gospel where they are to impact people where they are.
Novel idea.
Yeah. And so now as a senior, it's crazy because this year has been especially busy and challenging for me, and I've had to just pray through a lot of what my schedule is going to look like, because I have a heart to do ministry, but also want to be academically faithful and be a good student teacher and care for my students. And so I've had to actually take a little bit of a step back from leadership in ministry, more so than I want to, in order to still like fulfill everything as a student. But something that I'm doing still that I love is discipling to other underclassmen in CCO. And so we kind of developed this discipleship model that's like a chain. So there's a woman who goes to my church at school. Her name's Heather. She's awesome. If you listen to this, I love you, Heather. And she disciples me once a week. We meet and do a book study. It's called Gospel Identity. We're reading through that right now, and then read scripture along with that. And then, so she's pouring into me as I'm pouring into these 2 underclassmen girls. One's a sophomore that I discipled all of last year as well, and then one is a freshman who just came in. And so we meet once a week and read through the same book and passages of scripture. And so it's like a chain of people pouring into others. And then even the sophomore that I'm discipling in that group told me today, hey, I texted the other girl who's a freshman, and like we just went and got lunch today. And I was like, that's so cool. Like I just thought that was the coolest, because they just met recently. So I thought that was the coolest thing ever, because God is using so many people just to spread the gospel and to care for others. And so all of that to say that as a senior, I feel like I've just had an entire mindset shift, I guess, toward discipleship that was modeled for me as a freshman and sophomore and even a junior, that now I am trying to imperfectly model for others, so that they might see the importance of just doing life together as well. I think something that really impacted my faith a lot in discipleship was realizing the need to be vulnerable, because I feel like growing up in the church, I never really felt the importance, I guess, of being vulnerable. Like, we talked about accountability groups and stuff with certain things, but I was always either too scared to talk about stuff or just didn't really see a model for that, so I didn't really know what that looked like a whole lot.
Yeah.
But then coming into college, everybody's vulnerable all the time because we're all just freaking out about everything. I'm like, how do I be an adult? I don't know. And so
we don't either.
Yeah. You never really get there.
Man. And so I realized that being vulnerable and sharing that I'm not perfect, like I really do struggle with stuff, is a good thing, because then people can come alongside you and really aren't judging you, aren't gonna stop loving you. I mean, even if they are judging, they're not gonna stop loving you, and they're still gonna invest in you anyway, even when they know all of your baggage. And so that's been a huge game changer for me in seeing what the gospel looks like and what discipleship looks like.
And isn't that the beautiful thing about discipleship? Like you say, like how vulnerable you are, and you see the biggest thing that I see about people who are actively living out discipleship-driven relationships is their relationships are so much deeper, so much more authentic, so much more just gelled together than, you know, IUP does have some other reputations, you know, where it's like, oh, well, you know, we have so many friends. I can't even tell you how many times I hear people say, oh, yeah, I have so many college friends. But then whenever they need someone, it's like, oh, well, yeah, so-and-so can't, so-and-so can't, so-and-so can't. But I would love to see a test of it, to see how quickly you'd be willing to just drop what you need to do and go help someone. Because I would say it's probably astronomically higher percentage that people in a relational discipleship group will do whatever they can to help someone else versus what society is placing, you know, substance in relationally, you know, because it's just, oh, you just need to be able to go have fun with people, forget about your problems, pretend they don't exist, and then they magically pretend that they go away, but deep down we know that they don't. And so if you're able to get in and talk to people and say, you know what, this is what I'm struggling with, the chances of you being able to overcome that is so much higher than just wishing them away with artificial friendships. And so I would say that you probably agree with that.
Well, I have to admit, though, that like the whole dropping everything thing is actually something that I struggle with. So I just want to be honest about that.
It's because you're a control freak.
Because I am Bryan and I talk about that all the time. We're both control freaks. It's fine.
All three of us.
No,
are
it's not.
Yeah, that's not just you.
We all want to control everything.
Yeah. So actually, I still really struggle with, even though I feel I want to love and care for my friends so dearly, and I think that God has softened my heart to like drop everything to care for people. I am also very, very academically minded too, and so for me, grades are like honestly kind of a pride issue at times, and I really feel invested in my schoolwork. I really care about working hard. I really care about doing well in school, sometimes to the point that is a priority ahead of other people. And even just this week, even just last night, I was just telling you guys about this earlier, that I had so much work to do and was feeling so stressed, but just felt like God was calling me to have a conversation with my roommate and another friend instead. So I did that. And then I even saw his redeeming work in that today, where somehow I magically had like more time to get stuff done than I thought I was going to, because God really just like blessed that. But I haven't always made that choice. I haven't always listened to the Spirit. I've said like, well, no, God, I really need an A on this paper. So I really just need to get this done.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point there too, because I mean, those of us that like to control things, we like rubrics.
Yes.
Right, we like.
I write rubrics.
Yeah, right. So we're like, okay, if we do this, then this will happen, and we'll be able to control the outcome. And, but I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to how do you balance academics, leaning in with people, all of the other things you have to do. You have to learn to listen to the Spirit. Yeah. Right.
And that's not something that happens quickly. I mean, that's something that I don't think you ever fully are able to even grasp. But it's something where you have to, in in our view, you have to take a risk.
Yeah.
And God's saying, I got you.
Right.
Like God's saying, I got you.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's not a risk, but for whatever people, I'll say people like me as well, we just say, no. Like, God, you can take care of all of this. I want this.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and God's essentially saying to you, no, I really want that. Like, I really want that.
Well, and I've learned to kind of just break life down into those moments.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to be like, okay, I'm going to follow the Spirit all the time, no matter what he says. Like, yeah, that's a great concept. But like in the nitty gritty moments, when an opportunity is presented, like you just talked about last night, what is he calling me to do here? You know, I've got choices.
Yeah.
I could, okay, no, I can't. I've got to do this. And maybe sometimes that's the right choice.
Yeah.
But being able to say, okay, Spirit, what do you want me to do here? And then learning to lean in with that and being okay with what he calls us to do. I mean, to me, that's the process of growing in your walk with Jesus. Like what does it look like to listen to the Spirit on a consistent basis and to kind of, as those moments pop, what are we doing? Right? Like what is he leading us to do? And we're going to get it wrong sometimes. Absolutely.
Oh my word.
Right?
All the time.
And we could all give a
Yeah.
story of like, I know I should have done that, but I
Yeah.
ignored it, or I didn't realize that until later on. But the fact of the matter is, it's a process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple things I wanted to ask you as we kind of wrap things here. One of them was I'll save that one. What I would say to you is, okay, so we're talking a lot about the context of a public university.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say to any students that would be listening who are maybe sophomores, juniors, seniors, maybe younger, who are considering a similar course to what you've pursued, perhaps public university, whether or not they're looking to work in a public school. In either case, what would you say to them that would be something important for them to think through?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that you kind of have to go into it expecting it to not be easy, but expecting God to show up and to work. And you have to go into, I went into college just really praying and seeking the Lord and asking that he would lead me to a ministry that I could grow with. I would say actively seek out opportunities to, don't just go into college and just start, doing your classes and focusing on that and getting into a rhythm of that. Actively seek out community in a healthy place. Don't go to college and wait a couple months to find a church, because then you won't do it. Go to college and week one say, okay, it's Sunday, I'm going to check out a church. Go into college, research over the summer churches in that area, get in contact with people at churches. The church that I started going to college, that's not grammatically correct. I promise I do teach English.
You're not graduated yet. It's all right.
Yeah, it's fine. The church I started going to is not the church that I currently go to, just because CCO is through the church that I currently go to. That's the only reason I changed churches. So I started out the first couple weeks going to a church that's a lot like Grace Bible, so it felt comfortable. And now I go to a different one because I felt the Lord leading me there. But still, week one, I went to church. And I knew that if I didn't go to church, then I would get into a pattern of, oh, it's Sunday, like I'm exhausted, I can just sleep in. And so I would say you need to do your part in actively searching out that opportunity and trusting that the Lord is going to provide that opportunity also. It's not all your work, and it's not, you have to trust that God is going to lead you to where you want to go. It's not all you doing the work, but you do need to play a part in that you should be, researching churches and in possible campus ministries and getting in contact with people. And then even when you do get to college, make an effort to go out of your way to make friends with people in that community too. I would say that that's amazing if people come to you and invite you in and show you the gospel. That's absolutely incredible. But it's also okay if you go and talk to them too. Don't just expect people to come to you. Yeah. They might, which would be incredible. And that's the experience that I had, but actively seek out other people as well. And I would also say to not be afraid of going to a public university. It is definitely, so I've said this to people, so from working at, a Christian summer camp and growing up in the church where a lot of my friends from church went to Bible colleges, I kind of felt left out a little bit at times because I was like, well, I'm not getting a Bible education, and I would like to have that. I just didn't feel like that's where God was calling me. And that's okay. I kind of had to come to terms with the fact that it's really okay that I didn't make the same decision that a lot of my friends made because I listened to what God was asking me to do in this circumstance. And so just pray, listen to what the Spirit is calling you to do as far as where you go to college, and He's going to lead you to where He wants you to go in college, and then lead you through college as well.
Yeah, that's some great advice.
Definitely.
And thoughts on that?
No, I think you just placed it very, very well. But I do kind of connect with the idea of, some people feeling left out about maybe hearing about the experiences that other people are having going to Bible college, and you might feel like, oh, like now I need to catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I need to study harder, and now there's just something else. But I think that you've demonstrated very, very well, like some of the other avenues that you can take to get into disciple ministry. I mean, because that's essentially what we're called to do. We're called to make disciples.
Right.
And so studying the Bible, extremely important, and going to Bible college would be great. But at the same time, if you're going out and you're actively seeking out relational discipleship, I mean,
doesn't matter the context.
Doesn't matter the context. I mean, that right there is God leading, and God's leading us all. I mean, and so, and some of us just get there different ways, and so that it's just really encouraging.
And I would say an important point for us to make is we're not really trying to vilify or glorify Christian college or secular university.
Absolutely.
No.
Because I think sometimes in the church, especially, there can be a tendency towards one or the other, almost like one is always God's will, or like, and if it's not Christian college, then you're settling for something less.
Yeah.
Or
I felt that a
or
lot.
the flip side of that is true. Like you wear the badge of public university because you don't. And so I think the balanced view becomes, what is God calling you to do? And what direction is He calling you to pursue? Because not everyone is called to go to. There's no rubric.
Yeah.
Right? There's no one size fits all option. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we kind of present it in a way that is like one choice is better than the other, or one is always second best, or one is like, I'm more mature so I can handle it, or there's just so many things that
I'm not more mature and I can't handle it.
Yeah, there's so
it's
many
always
things
God.
that go into that. But I think it's just important to communicate, especially to students who are looking, what is God calling you to do there? Because He's going to see you through, like you said, He's going to see you through that, regardless of the context He puts you in. So,
and if you guys are looking at colleges right now and want to talk to me more about that, I would love to talk about that. Hit me up on social media.
Yeah.
So
Instagram, is that your preferred method of
Facebook's fine,
Facebook?
but you guys probably don't have Facebook.
What's
found
Facebook?
that
Although I heard Facebook Messenger is like huge now.
Apparently, I don't
Like,
know. When it's not getting hacked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Apparently
seriously.
Gen Z is all about Facebook Messenger, so who knew?
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So my final question for you, and we'll wrap with this, is if you could say one thing to high school Emily,
Wow.
whether it's something you took away from student ministry, whether it's something you learned at IUP or from CCO or from your parents, if you could say one thing to them kind of as I wish I knew this then, what would it be?
Wow. So I even listened to the podcast you guys did with Isaac on the way over here. Isaac, that was awesome.
That was smart.
Listening to that. And he got tripped up on the same question, and I even thought about my answer and still am thinking about it. But yeah, I think I would say the first thing that comes to mind, so I feel like the Spirit is leading me to say that, is that loving other people is in action, and it's not passive. And loving other people isn't just loving people who are like you or loving people who are easy to love. Loving people is loving all people, because all people are image bearers of Christ. And he calls us to love his children. And so, and then I would say to myself, like, okay, Emily, what does that look like? Seek scripture, seek the Holy Spirit for him to show you what that looks like to love your neighbor, and then pray for the courage to do it. Because I feel like high school Emily, one, was a little bit sheltered. Two, was fearful of sharing the gospel. And three, I always told my friends, like, I wasn't judgmental, because I think my friends thought I was judgmental, but looking back, I was like, I think I was judgmental. And even when I, like, didn't realize it. So just to realize that truly everyone is an image bearer of Christ, whether they believe in him or not. And so that gives them value and worth. And so love them like that. And you're not going to do it perfectly, but do it anyway. So that's what I would say, I think.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah, that's a great word.
And we'll wrap with that. Emily, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. Scott, always a pleasure.
I told you it was going to be a good conversation.
You were right. You absolutely.
I talked
There's
a lot.
Prophet going on over
maybe
there.
A little prophecy coming out.
But. All right, maybe that's a subject for another podcast.
Yeah.
It might have to be.
All right, thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.